Hello, everyone. I am Opus Knight, and you have entered Night Vision. Tonight, we have James Reed. We have Kate Seeger. And Mike Evans. And Mike Evans is a publisher. Now, how many authors do you represent, Michael?
Now I have to think, and I got to try and do math. Not my strong suit. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Not including myself and my partner. I think we have 6 authors right now. No, 7 authors that we're publishing. A couple that we may be publishing later in the year, but we haven't finalized that yet.
Now, how do you go about getting in touch with your publishing house if people are interested?
We are, people can reach out. They're more than welcome to submit a request for us to look at it. I mean, most of what we put out are previously published series, like full series. Like, we work mainly with prolific authors that have done the self-publishing route, and for whatever reason, maybe just for various reasons, be it the marketing or just the money that they're needing to put into it, they've got the creative is down. In most cases, they even have awesome covers, but they just need a push to a bigger PR push and more invested in advertising. So for the most part, that's what we take. We don't generally accept raw manuscripts, especially at this time. We already have a pretty extensive waiting list, and some people that we've actually needed to bump a bit later, because we want to make sure that we're able to focus on our current projects and give them the type of push and investment that they deserve. There are too many examples of publishers out there that will take on like 50 authors a year, promise release dates for things, and they'll end up being bumped by like 2 to 2.5 years, or even forgotten about. And that wasn't what we wanted to be. So it was kind of like, we'll start slow, we'll focus on what we've got. And when it makes sense, because at the same time also, when you're a publisher and you do it the way we do it, we're putting a lot of time and investment into our authors. So we want to make sure that we're not always launching, because if we're always launching and we're always investing in launching, then capitalistically it's not really a viable venture. But first and foremost, we also want to make sure that our authors are getting the attention they deserve.
Now, how do you see it as far as I know they've had a lot of discussions recently about closings of bookstores and different venues and things that aren't going to be offered anymore. Now, where do you see the future in books going? Do you see it becoming digitalized more so, or do you see a lot of media attention when it comes to other authors?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Well, I mean, we have already seen, working in the indie world with indie authors, and as a small press, I think it's fairly obvious what a huge market digital books and audiobooks are.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, first of all, it's convenient. It's right at your fingertips. And a lot of even the bigger authors, six-figure authors that are working in the indie world are selling, I would say, 95% of their product digitally, because that's where the ease is. That's where the market, and audio too. Audiobooks are huge. There are narrators that have massive followings, and there are people that devour audiobooks not only for the book and the author, but also for the narrator. And that other facet, or that other dimension to the marketability of the product, also has created a shift. So I mean, for me personally, I do sometimes still like to read a physical book. I mean, I would want all my books in physical copies, you know what I mean? But even myself, who, you know, swore I would never do this, have found myself spending a lot more time with ebooks than I would have thought I would.
Now, do you see, as far as with other authors that you have as clients and as friends, is that a question that they ever bring up to you? Like, when it comes to marketing their intellectual property, are they ever asking you, you know, do you feel that I should do a physical book? Should I do a ebook or so forth, paperback, anything like that? Is there ever a concern?
Well, all our books are available in print to order paperback, and also ebooks. So the print books are available for everyone.
It's also been my experience that graphic artists, and they tend to just are ready to do the print book version. It's usually included in their price for making covers and stuff. So there's a little extra formatting in doing a print book, but there's not like really any extra money really in costing you on your end. So it's usually included in, you know, your making the ebooks prices. So it's just like a little added bonus, you know, so why not do it?
Nice. Now, James, everyone, this is James Reed, and he and Michael have co-written books together, and I want him, they just released one last week, so I want him to tell us a little about it. Actually,
it was just to quickly cut in, it was James actually that released Storm Below yesterday. We're actually releasing our first co-written box set on the 22nd. So it's not actually out yet, but I'm happy to talk about it.
Definitely. Let's hear about it.
James, do you want to take one?
Okay, so it's a satirical fantasy. It's 6 novella or novelette length stories. Some are novellas, some are novelettes. And they are loosely connected. Well, some are direct sequels, but all 6 of them are loosely connected sort of through a shared metaverse of fourth wall breaking insanity. That's difficult to explain, and you should just experience for yourself by reading it, because I think it's a bit of a spoiler. But they're about anthropomorphized animals having wacky and very R-rated adventures on some of them, especially like the seals ones, where we have a lot of like wars and fighting gangster walruses and giant mechs, and like there's everything in it. There's magic. There's but they all kind of have their own story. They all have their own little themes, and there's always like a bit of heart in there. I always like to put heart into my characters, and so there's always so like through all the insanity, there's sort of very much a very real humanity in the stories that a lot of the beta readers have really connected with and really have fallen in love with the characters. So the first story though is about a group of seals that they just they have like this really great beer recipe, and the walruses want to take their beer, and they're not going to stand for that. And so they end up going to war with these gangster walruses over their ale.
I love that. Now tell us a little bit about, now you have the Chronicles. What is the full title of that?
So the books, the whole series overall is called the Cider and Ale Chronicles, broken up into 6 books. The Ale House Wars, the Ale House Rebellion, kind of a duology continuation. Then it shifts to a new story on book 3, which is called the Cider of Legend, which is about sidewinder snakes in a fictional Mojave desert, looking for a cactus that will apparently brew a cider that will save the desert from a COVID-style plague.
You can thank my editor for the ridiculous name for that cactus that I had to write over and over again. Because Michael's like, yeah, my editor Poppy Kuroki, who lives over in Japan, she threw in a comment like, Michael's like, we need a name for this cactus, like whatever's ridiculous. And she threw in one, and that's the one that stuck.
Aww.
Spiky McNeedlebottom.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a, I mean, if you think that's cute, there's a lot of stuff like that in there. So after Cider of Legend, we go to Cider for Harborland, which is our biggest book. It's the one that's actually probably a real novel size, short novel, but still a novel. And it's actually a crossover between both stories. And there's obviously an in-story reason why we're crossing over. The fifth book is a continuation of that book, although it's a side story, a side quest story with two characters that were actually side characters in Cider of Legend and Cider for Harborland, but it's got all kinds of cameos of other characters. And the final book is a little bit of a standalone, completely different story, but again, it ties into the overarching story because there are Easter eggs galore that we pull out and cameos, and it overall just ends the series really nicely.
Very nice. I love that.
That one's about a platypus on a wine tour in Australia, and then there are zombies.
Nice.
Yeah. Drunk
zombies. Love zombies.
Drunk zombies. Yeah, drunk zombies on the worst box wine ever, like the cheapest, most nastiest box wine that they picked up for $5. You know.
Drug zombies.
Yeah.
How are you, Kate? I said, how are you, love?
I'm good. Can you not hear me?
Barely. Can you turn it up just a smidge?
Yeah, let me see. Is that better at all?
Definitely.
Okay, cool.
We just want to make sure we can hear you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm good. I'm glad you can hear me.
So let everyone know your name, the correct pronunciation, because I am horrible with pronouncing names.
It's probably better to use the wrong one because it's spelled the way you said it, but it's Sager, spelled Seger. So it doesn't make a lot of sense. But
So show us that beautiful book you have written.
I have two so far.
Awesome.
His daughter. One. And
It's lovely.
third one will be out in February.
In February? Now, which one did you enjoy writing the most? Or were they kind of equal passion there?
The second one.
The second one?
I wrote the first one during NaNoWriMo,
Mm-hmm.
National Novel Writing Month, where you write a novel in 30 days. So it was a little bit of like a frantic, frenzied.
Fading out.
I don't know why that's happening. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
All right. I wrote the first one during National Novel Writing Month.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote the whole thing in 30 days.
Nice.
Which was a little intense. The second one, I was not doing that, so I kind of was able to my time a little bit more. So I think that's why I like the second one better. I wasn't pushing myself quite as.
Now, off of both of those books, the most recent, would you like to read the back of the blurb so we can get a feel for your writing style?
Yep. Blood won't wash away. First battle has been won, but amid the wreckage, promises crumble to dust. Alliances falter, even lovers scatter like ash on the wind. When the courts burn, cloaks will turn. Some will be brought together by the goddess's hand, others driven apart by the sting of betrayal into the arms of the enemy. Marionette, the girl torn between worlds, must unite the Fae and the Elves to secure her reign as Legion Queen. Decide the future of the realms has begun.
Fade it out just a little bit. But tell us a little bit about the characters. What should readers expect from these characters?
I'm a big chosen one trope person. And I know a lot of people think it's lame, but I love reading them and I love writing them. So Marionette is kind of a unwilling chosen one who gets away into this strange other world, and everyone's convinced she's this hero who's going to save everyone, and she is like, I'm not your girl. You guys all got it wrong. And I obviously don't want to give time. It becomes, oh, maybe she is the girl, you know. There's a lot of tension between the characters. I really like relationships that are kind of tenuous, like forged in the heat of the moment. And they have to.
You're
They
still
are
fading out, dear. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I
don't
think
know.
if you lean forward,
Yeah, I don't know if it's my Wi-Fi or if it's my speaker. I'll have to get a new
it happens.
microphone.
It definitely happens on this show, especially. Michael will tell you, we're all about the technical difficulties.
Yeah,
maybe I'll have it happened to me in podcasts as well. I actually stopped podcasting a couple of years ago because I run a podcast called Book and a Pint, which is also, it's like an evening audio podcast. And I had an epic length show a couple of years ago with like 3 guests. It was a 3-hour thing. It was before I had moved and I didn't have a lot of space to podcast because of my kids, and I didn't want them to like wake up because they were little at the time. So I had to podcast in my car. And literally after 3-hour podcast that I had spent probably 2 weeks orchestrating, was like, Mike, I don't know how to tell you this, but none of your audio came out.
Oh.
None of it. So I said, you know what?
I probably should use my phone because I never have a problem with that, but I didn't know it had to be horizontal. So lesson learned.
Yeah. No, I had a Windows update that reset my defaults to my webcam's microphone, which is, and not my shotgun mic that's right before me. And I recorded like 4 podcasts without knowing that this was an issue. Like I thought everything was fine. And then she's like, yeah, there's something weird, like your audio is coming through bad. I couldn't figure out that. I realized, yeah, no, Windows had reset my defaults. So now I'm paranoid.
Now, with social media, do any of you find it difficult to navigate? Or is it something like, Michael, we know you just said that you did a podcast, and you know, there's so many different ways for a writer to display their work. And yet I am asked repeatedly, how do you use social media? Where should I go to, you know, produce my works? Who do I get in touch with? Do any of you have any insight as far as what media is your chosen form of releasing your books or even with your podcast? Is there any certain ones you want to plug?
TikTok.
I don't know. I just mainly Facebook, I guess.
Facebook and TikTok.
You see, I'm a Twitter girl.
Yeah.
I'm all over Twitter.
I'm on Twitter, but I don't know. It doesn't.
Nice. Yeah, I love going on Twitter. I mean, I do Facebook, and I do I also have Instagram and different ones, but I think that I enjoy the conversations and the friendships that you kind of connect with on Twitter. Now, let's get into speaking about some writing. When you hit a plot hole and you have your whole book lined up, the outline, if you're an outliner or a pantser, and you get to that sticky spot, how do you navigate through that? Kate?
I know what
We'll start with Kate and we'll come right back to you, Mike.
Okay.
Skip it. I come back to it later.
I'm sorry. Oh, love, you're going totally out now. Perfect.
Okay. I don't know what I did, but hopefully it worked. I muted and unmuted myself. I skip it and then come back to it later. I don't really write in order. I'm one of those people, so I usually just over anything I'm stuck on and then come back around to it like later. And hopefully I can figure out what's going on with it by then. But since I don't really write in sequential order, I kind of have a sloppy, messy, rough draft that I then fill the holes in first revision.
Now, do you enjoy writing male characters or female characters better, or it doesn't matter?
Female. I always worry when I'm writing male characters that I'm not really hitting the nail on the head. More so than if I'm writing female characters, which I guess is probably kind of normal.
Gotcha. James, how about you, love?
On the plot holes or writing
Both.
with gender? Okay. Well, I just had a plot hole in my current draft. My outline, I had an event, and like I wanted to have this scene take place, like this action. There would be danger, stress, all that fun stuff. And I realized when I was just as I started writing it that there was a major plot hole that meant I had to redo the entire. Like I had to figure out a different way to get the events to work. So yeah, so I had to, luckily I just had started, so I hadn't gotten into actually the meat of it. So I hadn't written anything, so I was able to just redo my outline and come up with a different way to get me there that wasn't violating what I'd already established, like just in the preceding book, right? So it would have been pretty dumb if like readers have been like, wait, in the last book they did this and there was no more threat, but in this book they did it and the threat still remained. What's up? See, it didn't even occur to me when I did the outline. I was like, oh, this would be really cool. So I just had to get there a different way and structure the story differently. Luckily, I caught up before I wrote it. If I had written it, I would have had to like rip apart that section of the book and redo a lot of it. So I'm really glad I got it.
Had to do that? Have you actually had to throw something out or put it away and then have to walk back to it and say, okay, I know there's a story here?
Not necessarily that I walked away from it, but it's not something I usually have anymore. My early novels, I had to do a lot of gutting and fixing and restitching and moving things around. I'm usually better now at getting the stories done. You write enough novels and you kind of get the hang of like the stuff, but that one would have been a pretty bad mistake if I had not caught it before then. But no, my third novel, I had one character storyline where she stopped being an active character and became a passenger, and I didn't realize it at the time until my my author friend who read it said like complained about it. She's like, it was just she didn't have any agency. Like she stopped being proactive, and so she just wasn't as good. So I ended up gutting her and changing, like doing some massive rewrites on that book, at least on her little section of it. But
Interesting. How about you, Mike?
Well, it happened to me twice, and both times I handled it the same way. I messaged James and I said, dude, save me. I was like, the first time it was, okay, make these seals fight. And the second time was when I was attempting to write the most of my, because we're co-write, like in our writing partnership, I'm the plotter and the outliner, and most of the characters are mine, and the way I'll plot out the entire novel to an extent. I'll usually write a few chapters at the beginning, and then I'll sometimes write a couple at the end. James will write off of my outline, and then what he gives me back, I will read through, modify, add things, change things, and edit. And that's kind of how we do it. So I was writing Ale House Wars, and I was doing okay with the characters and the funny stuff, and I got to the point where I wanted fighting and magic, and I had no idea what to do. The choreography of it was just daunting and crazy to me. So I had read Above the Storm, which was is book 1 in Storm Below.
Mhm.
And it was all kinds of really cool, crazy aerial style battles, and lots of just ships and fighting and dragons, not dragons. They were on Pegasi, and stuff. It was just awesome. And I said, I need help with this. I can't write a choreographed fight scene for the life of me. And he did, and that was kind of how we got through that hump. And the rest of the stuff kind of came from there. And then with Max and the Captain, the second series we're putting out, the trilogy, I really wanted to write the first book in that trilogy myself, entirely myself, and then outline 2 and 3 and have James pretty much write 2 and 3 almost entirely by himself.
Mhm.
And I got, I guess, 3/4 of the way through the book, and there was just one section that I knew, even though in earnest I wanted to do it on my own, that he would be able to write better than I could ever dream of. It was just a chaotic kind of dream sequence scene. And it ended up being, I wrote in the outline, he wrote exactly what I had in mind, except even better.
Nice.
So for me, it's basically without a co-writer, particularly without this co-writer, I probably would still be trying to figure out how to get Alehouse Wars done. And I probably would have given up on it.
So an applaud for James. You're a heck of a helper.
Thank you.
We love that. Now, Kate, who's your favorite character in your book?
Morgan.
I'm sorry,
Her name is Morgan.
Morgan?
Yes.
And what makes her your favorite?
She's a very gray area character. So she's very morally questionable, but there's always there's always a purpose behind what she's doing. So she's very fun to write because you're never really sure whose team she's on. Like, she's kind of in the murky middle. She's very intrinsic to the plot, but it's very hard to tell, is she good? Is she evil? Is she doing this for selfish reasons or to be, esoteric? Like, she's just very kind of mysterious. So it's fun to write her and kind of leave the readers wondering what's going on with this chick,
Very nice. Yeah, we love those mysterious characters that they're so elusive that we're like, you do not know if they're the villain or they're going to end up the hero at the end. And that is awesome. Now, James, how do you build tension, love?
You build tension by giving readers the threat of something bad happening, and just kind of build it and build it and build it. Have them like there's like a ticking time clock that's going to happen. That something bad's going to happen, and it's going to happen to the characters you like. And if they don't, act the right way, they're going to get hurt, killed. So yeah,
Very
that's how you
nice.
build tension.
How about you, Mike?
For me, I like to shock. I'm a big fan of the early work of M. Night Shyamalan, basically up until The Village. I mean, Sixth Sense has gotten a little bit cliche at this point, but when I first saw it, I was kind of blown away by that.
Mhm.
I really like the idea of like the chaos theory, or like the whole butterfly effect concept of if you do something, or every small move that you make will alter the future reality. So I like playing on those concepts. One of the books, all our books deal with a little bit of stuff like this. But the most recent Cider and Ale book, or the last one we worked on that ends up being book 5, because it's the kind of the end of the series proper. The concept is basically one of the characters wants to live forever. and it plays on the whole idea that eternal life is kind of something that will ruin the reason for life having for risk taking, and why risks are important. I mean, if you can live forever, then it's not really a risk. So if you can just keep going and going, ultimately everyone else around you isn't going to, and you'll be left with this void of immortality. And it kind of plays on the idea of what this does to the character. If I say too much more, I'm going to spoil it. But but it's a really, really it's a freaky story. I mean, it's a fun story, and the characters are a lot of fun together. But what ends up happening ends up being really freaky, and so I like to sort of mess around with those concepts, and sort of plot twists, things that you won't necessarily expect are going to happen. Now, by the end of the series, I think if you read all the way through, because we're so metatextual in how we put it out there, some readers might kind of know what's coming, and that's fine, because there are other surprises that play on different things.
Very nice. I love that. Now, James.
Yes.
How would you describe your villains? When you're setting up a villain, what are the things you're looking to capture in that villain?
Why they're not the villain?
No, their characteristic.
No, I got that.
Or like,
That's
what
the
do you?
characteristic. Why they're not the villain? Why they're not the villain? You know, they're not, to them, they're not the villain. They could even be the hero to themselves. They have to. They're the antagonist. They have to have motivations that make sense for what they're doing, the things they're doing. I don't know. I don't have like I've written a lot of different villains, for different reasons. You know, I've taken good characters and turned them into villains. I've and done the opposite, obviously, too. But I don't know. I just first and foremost, I like them to be like that. They are doing something that they believe is the right thing to do, and that right thing just happens to be like morally reprehensible and at odds with, you know, what my protagonists are wanting to do.
Nice.
But that there's reasons that they do the things they do. It could be trauma. It could be like they've lost faith in, like, you know, doing things the right way. They've been broken by like war. They've been jealousy. You know, so many different things. You know, that can twist somebody into seeing the world in a way that's not a good way to view the world. Even if they're trying to save the world, you know, I have a villain that her way of saving the world just will happen to kill most of the people in the world. But to her, she sees it as the only way to save the world from a greater disaster is to just break it all and start again, as a better alternative to it all just ending where everyone's gone. But her way is going to, you know, it's going to lead to a lot of ways. And, you know, my main character's like, you know, maybe there's another way. Maybe we can try to find that. But, you know, those are my types of villains I like to write.
I like it. How about you, Kate? Lean forward.
Third person limited, multiple POVs. So who the villain is often dependent on which character you empathize most with, because some characters are villains to other characters, but they all, like said, there's a reason why they're doing the things they're doing. So which character you view as a villain and which you view as a hero kind of depends who you, I guess, empathize with, or whose point of view is the one that you align more closely with.
Okay.
I don't really believe in true villains where the person is evil, because that's not really, I mean, it's a thing that I guess happens, but, like, you know, Not that often. Usually there's a reason why people are think they are.
Nice. Mike, do you have any feeling about it, love?
About villains,
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of a main character or a one protagonist or even anti-hero, slight antagonist doing something that kind of makes that character villainous. Like, again, without giving too much away, the main character, Sandy Sam in Whiskey Eternal, in my opinion, and like both of the main characters, for their own reasons, are kind of the villains. They do some pretty selfish and villainous things, and they have some pretty, villainous concepts about what they want to do. Now, love backstory. It's not like they're just doing something bad because they want to be bad. Like Sandy Sam's a very desperate character. And if you read the 2 books before, you'll know where some of this desperation comes from. Scotty, the other character, is kind of, he's just a little bit more self-minded capitalist. Neither of them are bad guys, but the arc of the story, or a lot of the beats of the story, make them do some pretty horrible things. And I like that. I like the idea of a villain having depth, and having a backstory, and similar to what James said, kind of being able to be the hero of their own story, and the villain of someone else's.
Nice. I like it. Now, James.
Yes.
What characters drive you crazy when you have to write about them? Is there any particular form of character or character trait that really becomes overwhelmingly difficult for you?
I have yet to find that.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know. I've written some pretty nasty characters, some pretty virtuous characters, some pretty, scheming characters, some, naive characters. I don't know. I have yet to, I don't know. There's just, I don't have a problem. I've yet to have a problem writing any of my characters.
Good.
Maybe that would change, but
you got that one lurking out there. It's gonna haunt you. It's gonna drive you crazy. Trust me on this.
Maybe. I mean, I
now,
don't know.
Kate, how about you, dear? Go forward.
Like crawling on my desk. There's some that I find more difficult because they're more, I don't know, I guess close to my heart. So I have a harder time doing torturous things that feel like they need to happen for the plot to move forward. But there's no character that I actively dislike writing. It's more that I don't want to do the things I know I have to do to them.
Nice. How about you, Mike?
No, not really. I mean, I wrote a character in Matt and the Captain book 1, the love interest of the captain, who's the main character. And I gave her a heavy backstory. And it was a backstory that was familiar, and it came out of real experiences, and kind of an amalgamation of people that I knew that had experienced things like this. And it was a little bit hard, and it definitely got me emotionally shaken up when writing those scenes, to the point where I actually kind of had to stop writing and then come back to it, because I was like kind of shaking. And then the worst is what ends up happening to this character. And that's also a spoiler. But yeah, I mean, that's probably the closest thing I can think of. Also because I think writing, and I mean, I'm writing another book now. Actually, James is going to be helping me out with it. He hasn't written his parts, but it's kind of a series of vignettes that are based on my own personal memories, written in kind of a dreamlike stream of consciousness style, mixed with an also kind of a slightly more abstract fantasy story that's parallel. It's going to be parallel to the more personal vignettes. And it's based on a character that I actually wrote when I was in grade 9, so 30 years ago. My very first fantasy story, and it's about a dude who fought a dragon and got the girl in 7 pages, and I got an A+ on it. And so it's not really. I've been challenged writing this stuff because what it made me realize is that at 44 years of age, you can't, life doesn't work that way, especially in 7 pages. So the concept was to expand on this character, give him my first character, give him a big emergence, and parallel it fictionally to some of the personal experiences that I've had, which has been challenging because it's making me think about all these things that I've repressed. So anything, I guess what I'm trying to say, that's a little bit more real and less satirical. Amber from Max and the Captain, there was no satire in that scene whatsoever. I played it really, really straight, off of real life things. And then obviously this thing that I'm working on now is played really straight as well. I mean, there's little bits of humor in it because life can be funny, but it's certainly not satire.
Nice. I like it. Now, we're going to play a little game, and we always call it Burn the Brain. Now, Michael, I've done this to him before. So, James, what's that?
I don't think you have.
It's where I pitch the questions as quick as possible. You can't think about it. You just have to give an answer. What comes to mind first? Okay? All right. Now, James, we're going to have you co-partner this. Okay?
Okay.
So I'm going to shoot a question to him, and then I'm going to shoot it at you real quick. Okay? Okay. James, what's your favorite color?
Blue.
Mike, who's your favorite author?
James Joyce.
Worst author?
I don't know. I'm not ultra discerning.
No.
I'm gonna say, I'll say James Patterson, just because he doesn't write so much of his own stuff.
Okay.
And like, you know what I mean? Like, he's a brand as opposed to an author these days.
Gotcha. Now, James, if a woman wanted you to write something about her, like, let's say a character, have you ever done such? And would you?
No and yes.
Can you clarify?
No woman's ever asked me to write about her. But if someone did, I probably would.
Nice. I like that. Now, Michael, with social media, if you had to go, say, today on any show or podcast or television show, what would it be?
Night Vision.
Aw, we love you.
I'm a charmer.
I love it. James, what is the worst part of writing?
Editing.
And what is your Achilles heel?
Editing.
Wouldn't be those damn commas, would it?
That would be editing, right? That's all in there.
Actually,
mine is question marks. I seem to have an inability to type a question mark half the time. Yes. I don't know why. I just don't.
That's true. You actually will ask a lot of questions with
And there
explanation.
will be, and I don't know why. It's a habit I've never been able to break. Like I know I do it, and I still can't break it.
I end up
There's subconscious things. Let me tell you, commas. Every author that I think throughout history, commas are the worst. They're the
They
devil.
are.
Let me tell you.
They're yeah, 'cause-
Either too many or too little.
yeah.
And even when you put them in there, because when people speak, it depends on their speech. So it's different for different people. And I've learned this through the years. And it's so funny because the way I read a book is completely different than somebody else's interpretation of that book. And I love that question though. And you guys did awesome. So where can we reach you? Michael?
I am best reachable on Facebook Messenger under Michael Evan, or you can email me at authors in focus, all together, no underscores or hyphens or anything. authorsinfocus@gmail.com. You can send me a message at my Facebook group, fantasy/sci-fi focus.com. Join the group, post. I don't have, or at fallbrantpress.com. fallbrantpress.com. I don't have any author websites or anything like that for this series, although it's in the works, or Facebook groups, but I'm thinking that might be in the works too.
Good. Kate, how about you, dear? Lean forward.
Kate Sager author.
Can you repeat it, honey?
Pretty much everywhere at Kate Sager author. Facebook, Twitter, everywhere it's the same. So Kate Sager author.
Awesome. And James?
You can find me at jmdread.com, on Facebook in my group, which is called Fantastic Worlds of the Imagination, where we post fun stuff. And my books are available on Amazon. I just had the Storm Below complete box set dropped yesterday. So that's 1,000,000 words. It's 5 heavy books. So here's the first one here.
Beautiful.
So yeah. So it's all 5 of them for $2.99 right now. So get it while it's really cheap.
It's literally the best possible way to spend $3 that I can possibly imagine.
That is beautiful. I love that. Guys, it's been awesome. And I always have a great time. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, everyone, for joining Night Vision. And we hope to see you next week. Good night, all.
Good night.
There.